Have you ever been frustrated when working with dates in Excel? Entered a date only for Excel to convert it to a number. Try to sort data chronologically by a date and you get anything but a chronological order. Or try to subtract 2 times to work out the number of hours and get an answer which clearly does not look correct. I can guarantee that most people who work with Excel have experienced frustrations such as these. It's inevitable because most of the data we work with on a daily basis has a time component to it.
Click on the link to register for our free Excel webinar where Mark will cover these critical Excel insights of working with dates and times in Excel.
Right, there we go. Good afternoon to you, Mark.
Great, thanks Shane. Thank you very much. Welcome to all our listeners. Those of you who attended the first webinar we did of this series may remember we looked at text, numbers and dates and the importance of understanding how they behave within the Excel environment. Today we're going to take a closer look at dates and times specifically. But before I do that, I'm wanting to just recap very briefly what we did in the previous webinar, just for those of you who weren't in attendance then, that you're up to speed, because there's some key concepts there which I'm going to basically build on during the course of today. So across the top of my screen in rows 1 and 2, I've got some just basic entries which any one of us could particularly enter into an Excel spreadsheet. You may well notice that in the first 3 columns, we've got text components. First one, a very standard text, a simple hello to all of you out there. And then an alphanumeric, this is potentially like an invoice number, and there is a value week 1. Alphanumeric meaning that it's got a text component as well as a number. Now, if I take a look at those, they all the format, general format. So if you take a look up here, the general format, I haven't done any additional formatting over and above the default of general. And those values or entries are all aligned on the left-hand side. If I take a look at the number grouping here in columns D and E, I've got a very standard whole number integer, and I've got a value which has got a decimal. And both of those are aligned on the right. And that was the critical thing which we looked and addressed looked at and addressed last time, is that text should always be auto-aligned on the left and numbers always auto-aligned on the right. And the importance of this I'll demo using this little example down on the bottom left. If I had to enter this value of 10.5 but do it slightly differently, so here it's going to be 10.5, and in the next cell here I'm going to do 10.5. You'll notice that one of those aligns on the right, which is correct, the first one, and the other one aligns on the left, which is incorrect. And you can see that if I try and calculate with those 2 values, Excel gives me a definite error there because it's trying to add a numeric value with text. Whereas over here, where it's summing up the range of data, it correctly gives me an answer of 40.5 on the number 1 example, but the number 2 example, it completely ignores that. And that is the danger of entering numerical values, which we think are numeric, but Excel is interpreting as text. And try as we might, if we format that to try and be a number, it will only be accepted if I change it to the decimal notation, which my laptop is set to, which in this case is a point. And so it's very important that when you're entering numerical values that those numbers are always aligned on the right. Then we also looked at dates very briefly, and if I draw your attention to cell F2, if I had to now enter the current date, and there's a neat little shortcut to do that, and that's Control and the colon key, and puts in the current date for me. And when I press enter to enter that cell component, it auto aligns to the right. Now, based on where numbers and text aligned, we would assume that that is numeric because it's aligned on the right. And indeed, a date is stored as a number. Way back in 1978, when the 2 famous guys developed VisiCalc, they decided to capture a date as a numerical value so that we could do date math, as they call it, or date mathematics. And so that value there of the 6th of the 12th, 2018, in Excel terms is actually stored as this number here, 43,440. And that is basically the number of days since the 1st of January, 1900. So basically the 1st of January 1900 is the dividing line. It's like the ADBC of PC dates. And so Excel then can actually compute with those because a date is basically numeric. Just a matter of interest, and we'll turn to time a little bit later, but just to introduce time to you here now, if I wanted to add the current time, so let's just convert that back to a date, short date format. To enter the current time is Control-Shift and the colon key. And that there is our current time. And again, if I had to convert that back to a number, again, it should be numeric because it's a line on the right, I get 0.59. And so the time component is the decimal. So we actually 59% through our day, and a complete value of 1 obviously will tick over to the next day, and we'll add a number to my date on the left, and this then will start again at 0.1. And so dates and times are both numeric. I can actually capture a date and a time together. And so over here, if I do Control and the colon key, press the space bar, Control-Shift and the colon key, I get the current date and time combined, and I've convert that to a numerical value. I get a combination of these two. So let's take that back to a number. So there's the date component, there's the time component, and there is the date and time component. And so I don't know if you've ever done this by mistake. If you take the value of 0 and you convert that to a date format, either purposely or accidentally, changed to a short date format, I get 00 of the first 1900, and so that's basically the starting point, and implies that this number here is obviously 43,440 days beyond this date of day 0. Now, the advantage of having dates stored as numbers is I can compute with them. And so over here, if I put in the current date, Control and the colon key, below here, I've got Christmas Day, and I can then subtract my current day from Christmas and find out how many shopping days I've got till Christmas. So I select that cell of E13, subtract the current date of E12, and I get 19. If I'd entered the date incorrectly and entered it as a text value, something like this, the 6th of the 12th, 18. See, that stays on the left-hand side, even though we can interpret that as a date. It looks like an obvious date to us. Excel sees that simply as text, and if I apply the same maths on this, try and subtract the 2, I get a hash value error, because basically Excel says there's no way you can compute with 2 text values or 2 text entries. They have to be numeric. So that just confirms that a date has to be a line on the right-hand side. Now, there's so many different ways in which we can enter dates, and so I'm going to take you to my next worksheet and just work through these systematically. So across the top here, I've got a whole lot of different ways in which we can enter a date into Excel. And so the first one we've already been introduced to, and that's to enter the current date of the format that your PC is set to. So if I press here, Control and the colon key, I get the current date, the 6th of the 12th, and again, that automatically lines to the right. Now, I put that in green, which means that's always the safest bet to enter the current day. And it's actually a nice little check to verify what date format your computer is set to. I will show you a little bit later on where that date format can be edited in your control panel in the regional settings. But for now, if you want to do a quick check of what your current date format is set to, Control and the colon key will give you exactly that. Now, another way we can determine whether date is genuine is that if I select a date and I use my autofill handle and drag it down, the default is always to add 1 day at a time. And here perfectly you can see I've got consecutive days. if I had to enter a date incorrectly, and Excel interprets this text, so do this, the 6th of the 12th, 18, and I replicate that down, Excel just thinks this is an alphanumeric. It's trying to cleverly generate a series here and takes the value of 18. It's not adding a year at a time. It's simply just adding 1 to 18 and keeping that component 06.12 as consistent. And so that immediately earmarks to me that that is genuinely, or that is definitely not a genuine date. And it's always a good thing to check, because somebody may very well have done this, forced that date to align on the right. So we think date on the right is correct, and if I replicate that down, it still does it incorrectly. And so those are little telltale signs whether you've got a genuine date or not, even if it's been forced to display on the right. They should always just go sequentially one day at a time. Now, if I had a date like this, so today's date would be the 6th, like this, of December, and I drag that down, it looks pretty genuine because Excel adds the next current day. And so it looks like this is a date which is being added one day at a time. And according to my principle here, this looks correct. However, let's jump up to towards the end of the month and do something like the 29th. Select that and drag it down. So clearly only 31 days in December until we launch into the new year. So the 32nd, 33rd, and 34th of December clearly does not exist. So again, this is just an alphanumeric series that Excel is trying to cleverly draw a sequence to, and so that is definitely not a genuine date. So that's why I got those both in red, because those are definitely do nots. You do not want to enter a date in either of those formats, because they are simply just text, even if somebody has forced them to display on the right. And the danger with that is that when you try and sort anything which is entered as text chronologically, it doesn't sort chronologically, it automatically sorts alphabetically. And so, for example, here, I've got a classic list of clients. I've got 9 clients listed here, and I've got their date of birth listed there. And if I wanted to sort that in their age order, so order of their date of birth, if I select one of those cells, go to my data ribbon, go A to Z, you can see that that's definitely not sorting in chronological order. Those are not sequential. It's basically just taking the first value here and sorting all the 1s first, then all the 2s, then the 3, and then you can see it jumps down to the 9th. And so that is definitely not in chronological order if a date is stored as text. Now, with these ones that are orange, you just have to be aware of what's happening. As long as you're aware of what's happening, and then you can merely enter dates like this, but you need to be cognizant of that. And to illustrate my point here, if I had to enter today's date by just putting in the 6th and then typing in the name of the month, the first 3 letters, so 6th of December, and enter that in there. Now, Excel's obviously picking up that this is a genuine date because it automatically jumped to the right without any further intervention from me. And if I take a look at the home ribbon and the formatting, it's automatically customize that, so it's out of the general format. The danger with this is that often people enter a date like this, especially when it comes to something like birthdays, because to prevent somebody's age being displayed, they try and enter a date in a month or a day in a month without the year. Meanwhile, if I reselect that cell, notice what's happening is that it automatically assumes the current date component that has been emitted. So the date component which has been emitted here was the year, and the current year is 2018. So unbeknown to many, when they enter a date like this, they actually are still entering a day, month, year component, which it has to be because it's counting the number of days since the 1st of January 1900. So the danger with this is that you can be merely entering a whole lot of birthdays which you think do not have a year component. So something like this. You can see here, I've got a whole lot of birthdays entered. So obviously Justin Payne, the dentist, was my first client, and I entered his birthday in 2016. And I can see that because when I select that day, there is the genuine date. So if you weren't aware of that, and I try and rank this now in birthday order, select one of those days, go to my data ribbon, rank those by sorting them. And you can see now I've got a case where I've got a November birthday, which is appearing above a May birthday. And this is where we start swearing and cursing at Excel that it's not sorting it correctly. Meanwhile, it genuinely is, because this was captured in 2016, whereas this particular birthday was captured in 2018. So as long as you are aware that when you're capturing a date in the format where you're omitting the year, that it will enter the current year. Now that is fantastic if you're entering a whole lot of invoices for a current year and you don't want to end up typing 2018 every time, then you can do this. As long as you're aware that that is happening, that's the most important point. So that is why that is an orange. You don't have the complete green light because you need to be aware of what's happening behind the scenes. Something very similar happens when I just enter a month and a year. So that's excluding the day component. So if I had to type in here December 2018, notice again that jumps to the right. So Excel must be interpreting this as a genuine date. Select that, and if I take a look in my formula bar, that the date defaults to the first day of the month that you have entered. So again, if that was your intention to enter the first day of the month and just display the month and the year, then that's all good and well. But you have to be very aware that that is in fact happening. When it comes to just entering the numeric components, it can get a little bit trickier. And so over here, if I had to enter it as 06 and 12, notice that it interprets that as the 6th of December. And because my date format is set to a day, month, and year, then it interprets it as such. But just take a look, if I had to go and switch my date format around, so if I went to my control panel here quickly, and I went to the regional settings, and went to dates, and this is where I can set my date format. If I switch that around quickly, and change that to year, month, and day, notice that all my genuine dates automatically switch around. So those were genuine dates, automatically adapting to my newly created date format of year, month, and day. Where they weren't genuine, see how they still stay as they were entered just as text. So that's another telltale sign right there. But over here, if I had to enter then 06, 12, notice how that switches it around, because in my new format of year, month, and day, the month comes first and then the day. And so if I enter in the exact same figures now, I get the 12th of June as opposed to the 6th of December. And so you have to be very aware of that. It will take it in the same order what your short date format is set to. And so if my format was set to this genuinely, I would need to be cognizant of the fact that I have to enter the month first. So I'd have to do 12-06, and then it enters the 6th of December, which is correct. Okay, so I'm just going to switch my date format back again. We'll do this a few times during the course of this session. So I'm going to quickly do that again and switch it back to day, month, and year. By the way, you can change your date dividers here. So if you would rather have a / and you want day, month, and year, you can do that. I prefer the dashes because it's less obtrusive and it's a bit more simplified, and you can read it a bit quicker, or a bit easier, I should say. And so I prefer it that way, but just to show you that it will adapt to this if you would like. Also, just a matter of interest, they always denote a month with capital M's, even though it will work with lowercase m's. It's just to differentiate between months and minutes. It's the one, obviously, same letter appears in both the time and day component, so capital M is for your months. So I'm just going to change that there and go back to my, my spreadsheet. Notice again, genuine dates automatically adjust to accommodate my new format with the / now. Then here I've got a combination. Just be careful of this, orange and green. It should actually really be red and green, because you can enter a date here as long as you've got it in the same format as what your date is set to. And so if I entered in a date here as 06/12/2018, accepts it perfectly, even though I used my separators slightly differently to what they're currently set at. It recognizes that format and puts it as a genuine date, aligning it to the right, so it's storing it as that big number. Now you have to be very aware what your short date format is set to, because often people have been caught out where they're entering system, they think it's day, month, and year. Meanwhile, their format is set the other way around, or an American format of month, day, and year. And so if you're entering a date and your short date format is set to month, day, and year, you can end up with a whole host of problems. So just to show you what will happen if I do that, here I'm going to go to my control panel, go back to my regional settings, and to date. Sorry, it's a bit of a rabbit warren to get here, but it's very important that I show you this. So I'm going to switch this around, pretend I'm American for a few minutes. I won't try the American accent because I'll just embarrass myself. And so here I've got month, day, and year. Apply that, click on OK, and OK again. Okay, notice those have genuinely switched around. Same with that one. But let's say I was going in here and I'm simply trying to enter the date, and I think it's in the format of day, month, and year. So I enter in here the 6/12/2018. It jumps to the right. I think that's great, fantastic. I must be entering the correct day. The problem, though, is that now if I start entering a date which is greater than 12. So for example, let's say I'm at the end of next week, and it's the 13th. So I enter here the 13th of the 12th, 2018. And the date doesn't move to the right. And I get quite confused, but I just carry on entering it because it seems like it's a genuine date. The problem now, though, is that this here is not the 6th of the 12th. It's actually the 12th of the 6th. As soon as Excel sees that the first value here is greater than 12, it assumes that can't be a date, because obviously I don't have more than 12 months in a year, and so it assumes that is text. We had a client who had this exact issue. They had switched to Office 365, which is the whole cloud-based computing, which is fantastic because I can share a spreadsheet online and I can have two people on different sides of the globe working on the same spreadsheet at the same time. However, the default settings, because it's American-based, have American default settings, and so the date is set to month, day, and year. So they're merely entering dates just like I'm here, thinking that it's day, month, and year. Meanwhile, it's the other way around. And only when they got to creating reports did they realize they had future dates, and clearly something was wrong. And so we had to spend a good couple of hours to untangle that mess and correct all their dates. And so that's why I've got this as a warning. You need to ensure that you're aware of what your short date format is set to, because you need to be able to be capturing it in the correct format for it to be the genuine date that you're wanting to add. One safeguard, which is the best option, and I always advise people to enter a date like this if you're unsure of the date format environment you're working in, is to always enter it as year, month, and day. And irrespective of the date format, it will capture it correctly. And so if I enter in here, in 2018, and I do the month, which is the 12th, and the day, which is the 6th, even though my format is month, day, and year now, it correctly interprets it because it's unambiguous and puts in the correct date. And so that one gets the green light as well, completely green, because it's a fail-safe way of entering a date. Always enter it as year, month, and day. Or a quick way to check is to do your control and the colon key, and that will tell you what format your date is currently set to. Okay, so if we're dealing with genuine dates, then we know what we can compute with them. And so just a few interesting tips and tricks on working with dates and being able to compute with them. So this one's got the green light. You can see it's been entered correctly. It's now currently in the format of month, day, and year, so just be aware of that. So it's the month first, then the day, then the year. And let's say I wanted to calculate somebody's birthday. And a way that we can do that is, instead of trying to capture it just as a month and year component, I can use a function called text, which enables me to extract a text component from a numerical value like a date. And so I can say equal to text, select the value, and then over here I just type in inverted commas the format that I'm wanting. So here I'm wanting day and then the month. And I've typed 3 M's because it will then denote the first 3 characters of the month. So it's a day dash month, and then you can see I get the 23rd of January, and I can replicate that down, and I've got my genuine birthdays. So it's not the birth date, it's the birthday, with the year being excluded. And the clever thing about this is, if I sort that in try and sort that in chronological order, it actually behaves the way I would expect it to behave. So if I click on that, A to Z, and you can see now all my January birthdays at the top: February, April, May, August, September, October. And so even though this is genuinely text, because it picks up that it's a date, Excel very cleverly puts it in the right order. And so if you're wanting to rank your office staff or your clients in their birthday order, then you can do that by converting it to text using this very simple text method. If you wanted to calculate somebody's age, there's a very useful function called today, which actually puts in the current date. Irrespective of when you open the spreadsheet, it will always display today's value. It's a function that doesn't require any arguments, so it's equal to today, open and close brackets, and that will give you the current day. Obviously the format here is just numeric. I'm going to change that to a current date. And you can see there the 12th of the 6th, or sorry, the 6th of the 12th, American format confusing me there. That there is the genuine today's date, and that obviously tomorrow will change to the 7th, the next day the 8th, etc. And so I can use that and subtract these 2 dates to find the number of days in between. And so if I go into here, it's equal to today, and I'm going to subtract person's birthday. And if I convert that then back to a number, that'll give me the number of days that Justin Payne has been around up until today. Now, obviously, that's the number of days. If I want his age, which is in years, then I could divide that by 365. And that there gives me his birthday. So he's obviously, or his exact birth date to the nearest 2 decimals, so he's 59.91. The problem with that, though, 365 doesn't take into account leap years, etc. And so it's not entirely accurate. And so there is a neat function called year fraction, which takes care of that. So if I want to find his genuine date, if I type in here year frac, the start date is today. So I'm going to type in there today. The end date is his birthday. Just enter. And you can see there, that's the exact age based on taking into account leap years as well. And you can see there's a slight difference, ever so slightly. So it's only a day or 2 off, but this is important when we're trying to figure out the person's birthday, if he's exactly 59 or not, when he's going to turn 60. And so you can see the slight difference. So this is probably the better method to use. And if you wanted to round that off, instead of calling him 59.87, you'd rather say that he's 59, then you can convert that to an integer. So I'm just going to type in there int at the front there, close it off, and I've got his age. I'm going to change that to no decimal places. So those are the 2 different ways in which I can calculate his age. If I wanted to work out whether it was his actual birthday or not, I can then compare the today component with his actual birthday. And so here I'm going to say equal to, I'm going to do an if statement. I'm going to say that if this birthday here is equal to the text component of today in the same format that I've done that, which is day and month. Then return a value of 1. Okay, so it's birthday. None of these guys have currently got a birthday. Maybe I should do this, return a value of 0 if it's false. So it's either 1 or 0. Let's do that. And so if I cheat here and I make somebody's birthday today, so let's take that to be the month first, so that's 12th December and 06. You can see here that converts to a birthday, and sorry, I've left off a month here, 1M. And there you go, that converts to 1. I've also got some conditional formatting in here, which we could potentially look at future webinars, but that now tells me that the birthday is now on today. And so if I had that set up in my spreadsheet of all my clients or my office staff, I'd quite quickly be able to pick out if it's somebody's birthday today or not. Cool. So that's a quick look at dates and how to capture them and work with them. Hopefully that's been useful. I'm going to quickly look at how to correct dates if they have been previously entered incorrectly, and then we'll have a brief look at time. And so probably another 10 minutes or so, and then there'll be time for Q&A at the end. And so if I take a look here, I've got some invoices, and they've all been captured. Some of them obviously correctly and some incorrectly. And you can see the date format here has been captured as day, month, and year. And you can quite easily pick that out. If you look at that, obviously I can't have a month, which is 31. So it has to be day, month, and year. And sometimes they were entered correctly and sometimes they weren't. Now there's a very neat feature called text to columns, which has a fantastic use and that it was designed for, but it has a lovely cheat component which enables me to fix dates. And so what I need to do here is first of all check to see whether the genuine dates are the same as the incorrect date. So the format there is at the moment is not the same. So you can see here that format is the month first, then the day. And so I would have to, at this point, isolate them to be different, or make sure that my date format and my regional settings is set to day, month, and year, the same as this. Okay? So if I didn't want to change my date settings to day, month, and year, then the best way to fix this is to quickly sort this. So I'm going to go to Data and Sort. All my genuine dates bunch up at the top and all my text dates at the bottom. I'm now going to highlight all of those. Nice little shortcut to get the end of my range. Control Shift and the down arrow to highlight those. I'm now going to go to Data, Text to Columns. Now normally I use text to columns to split data according to a delimiter. So if I wanted to split this into its components of day, month, and year, then I would do this. I'd select Other and a point, and you can see it splits it up there. But I'm not going to do that in this case. I'm going to leave it just as in one cell. Go to Next, and here I'm going to tell Excel what format this date is in. And so here it's going to be in the format of day, month, and year. So I select that, DMY, click on Finish, and there we go. Converts it into a genuine date. So as long as the incorrect date has been put in a standard format, then I can use text to columns to fix that. I'm going to go to jump over to this correcting date 3. This is a classic import of a CSV from a bank, looking at my bank statements, and here they've captured the date and it looks like a genuine date because it's in the format of year, month, and day, and it's aligned to the right. Unfortunately though, this is still not a genuine date, and I can tell it very quickly if I just delete those top few rows. That's it. Let's put a heading in here of date. and then this here is my amount, and this is what it is. Okay, let's delete these other columns because they're not necessary. So if I was cleaning this up, delete, and then this is my reference. Okay, now if I had to sort this by date, then I'll still get the chronological order because year, month, and day enables me to do that. So if I sort here, click on data, click on A to Z, and I click on Z to A, obviously I've got a 0 down the bottom here. Let's get rid of that guy. My closing balance, let's delete that. Okay, so that's sorting chronologically, but it's still not stored as a genuine date because it should theoretically take on the same date format that my PC is set to, which is currently month, day, and year, that American format. And another way that I can check this is if I had to put filters on here. So if I go to data and select filters, and I click on this, you can see here that it just lists all the different unique dates that are available to select from. If they were genuine dates, though, it should group it very neatly for me by year, month, and day. And so that's another telltale sign that this is not a genuine date. But I know my trick now to use text to columns to fix this. So I can highlight that entire column here, go to data, I can go to text to columns, go to next, no delimiter, next. Now I just have to specify that this is in the format of year, month, and day. Click on that, select finish, and there we have them. Genuine dates in the format that my PC is currently set to, which is month, day, and year. If I click on my filter, you can see it's grouped it by year and then by month, and I can drill down. And so genuine dates enable you to do this fantastic filtering. So if I just simply wanted to see my invoices for January, I can select that, and all the invoices just for January are there. Whereas in the other format, I'd have to tick every single one, which is obviously a very long way of doing it and not stored as a genuine date. Cool. Moving on to time. We've got 5 minutes to have a look at time very, very quickly. And if I had a little timesheet here, I've got 3 employees, which I've captured the time that they clocked in and the time that they clocked out. And I wanted to calculate the difference between those 2 times. So at the moment, I'm going to say it's equal to this time subtract this time. And Excel always, if you're working in consecutive columns, it'll always take on the format of the column next door. And so this format here is in the format of my 24-hour format for time. I can see that because 4 o'clock is 16:15, and it very conveniently calculates the number of hours. So if I replicate that down, that there gives me my genuine hours. And if I put a total on the bottom here, so I go to date, Alt and equals, quick shortcut for my auto sum, and I've now got 2 days. Oh wait, hang on, that's not right. It's caught me out. I'm going to change the format here to the same format as this. Let's do my format painter quickly. Home format painter. There we go. Okay, obviously something not quite right here. I can't sum those hours and get 2 hours 37. That's clearly not correct. Okay, so the problem here is that it's a formatting issue again. Remember that time is stored as a decimal, and so if I had to highlight those and convert them into genuine number, so that is a percentage of the day, so 41% of the day, 0.41 of the whole day, and then adding all those together, I get 1.11 hours. And so that is correct. It's just when I change the format to display as time, then the day component has been removed. And so what I could do to correct it, to display it, if I want to display time like this, I could highlight those, I could right-click, go to Format Cells, I could go to my custom formatting, and over here, I could specify exactly how I want this displayed. I want to display the day, then the hours in 24-hour format, which is capital H, and then the minutes. Okay, so there I've got 0 days, and then that one I've got a genuine full day. So that's 1 day, 2 hours, 37. Now the tricky thing with this is that if I had to now apply like an hourly rate to this, it can catch me out. And so if I type in here rate, here I'm going to make it equal to this rate which is set here. I'm going to lock this using F4, make it absolute values so that I can drag that down to get it consistently throughout. And so if I want to work out how much I need to pay these guys for their work done, which here total is going to be equal to that value multiplied by this value. Clearly he needs to earn a bit more than 20 Rand. Just format that back to currency. We can keep the decimals on. And so there's clearly an issue here. And the problem is that obviously it's not using the formatted value that you can see, it's the underlying value, which is the decimal. And so if you're wanting to calculate something like an hourly rate, then what we should actually do here is multiply our answer by 24. So it actually converts it to genuine hours. So I'm going to actually insert here another column and type here hours as numeric. And so this should actually be equal to the difference between these two. And then change that format to numeric. So that's a portion of the day. If I wanted the number of hours, I then have to multiply that by 24. That becomes multiplied by 24. And I have 9.75 hours, so converting the hours into decimal notation. And then this formula here, instead of multiplying the formatted hours of a decimal, this should actually be the numerical hours component. And so I'm going to change this here. Instead of reading D4, I'm going to change that to E4. And it looks a bit better. I'm sure my staff will be a little happier being paid that amount. Cool. So hopefully that's been helpful in working with dates and times. A lot to take in. As Shane said earlier though, the video for this will be available on our website. So if you go to Summit Solutions Training, the previous video as well, which if you haven't looked at is worth looking at, which focuses on text and numbers as well, will be listed there. And then within the next day or two, you should be able to view and download this current video. And so Shane, I've got 15 minutes left of our hour to take any questions. So I don't know if there are any questions. I don't know if you want me to handle Blackie's question.
Yeah, there's nothing else in addition to Blackie's question at this stage.
Okay.
Mark, maybe you can carry on with that. And then just before you tackle it though, folks, just a reminder, if you do want to ask a question, this is a procedure to follow. Click on the red arrow top right. There's an area there that says questions. It's headed up questions. If you just click on that, you'll find a place that you can type in and then just send it through. All right, so over to you, Mark. Do you want to take back the screen?
I can do that.
Okay, let me just read it there in case people aren't seeing it clearly. What Blackie's asking is it possible to show the day of the week on the right-hand side of the date? So in other words, Monday, Tuesday, like in full Word format. Is it possible to have that showing just on the right-hand side of the date? And I'll flip back to your screen, Mark, if you could just do the necessary, please. And then I'll mute my mic again.
Cool. Okay, so it's basically to show the day as well as the date itself. So I might be able to use one of my examples here. And so over here, for example, if I wanted to find out the day on which somebody was born, so at the moment here, this is just displaying the format of the 23rd of January. If I wanted to actually modify that to display the day itself, or the day name on which he was born, I just had to right click on that, go to format cells, similar to what I did with the time. I go to the custom format here and I can then include the day name component. Now the way this works, you'll see here that the 3 M's gave me the name of the month. if I put 4 M's there, it'll actually give me the full name. So it'll say 23rd of January. And the similar principle works with days. And so here, 2 Ds means it'll display a 2-digit date. So for those that are a single day, for example, today, which is the 6th, it will display it as 06. But if I did it as 3 Ds, and I can even do it at the end here as well. So I put 3 Ds in there, click on OK, and you can see there 23rd of January on a Saturday. So Justin Payne was born on a Saturday, and if I replicate that down, I now have the different days on which they were born. And so any combination of your date components, D, M, and Y, you can use 2 characters, 3 characters, or 4 characters to bring out those different components. Does that answer Blackie's question?
Thanks, Mark. And obviously, if you made it 4 Ds, then that would be the day in full.
Correct. Yeah. So if
great.
you want to quickly show you that, so if I went to format cells and I change that to 4 Ds, click on OK. Here we go. It's got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, etc.
Okay, perfect. All right. Lovely. Thank you. I'm going to just take back the screen and run a quick poll at this point.
Cool.
In fact, 2 to finish off with. The first one, folks, we'd just like to ask you what future topics you might be interested in. So, we've just put up 5 options there. There's obviously a lot more than that, but you can actually select all 5 of those if you want, or just 2 of them. But yeah, it would be very helpful for us if you could just tick those boxes and then hit the submit button, please. So I'll just run through them. It's Excel tables, flash fill. You might have heard of that. I'll ask Mark in a minute just to explain what flash fill is, just while you're voting. Conditional formatting, sorting and filtering, and then financial formulae. Do any of those grab you? If so, please just tick the boxes, hit the submit button. Mark, do you want to just chat briefly while the guys are voting what flash fill is, please?
Cool, I can do that.
Scary.
No, I can definitely do that. You're going to give me back my screen, or am I back on my screen?
Okay, well, let me just finish the...
You have to finish the poll, okay.
You can't do 2 things at the same time.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Okay, guys, I'm going to just call a 5-second countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. That's very helpful feedback. Thank you. And then before I flip back to Mark, just to show us what flash fill is, won't you just give us, this is just a quick 2020, a very sophisticated poll that we have, not really. How was the session for you? Was it a tops? We hope so. Very helpful, is also nice. Okay, if there's ever anything that you can think of that we could do to improve these sessions, we're going to be doing a lot more of them in 2019. But yeah, we welcome feedback like that. If there's anything that you can think of, please just let us know. You can tick that box and we'll contact you. But yeah, thanks for the positive feedback that's coming through. All right, I'm going to close that poll. Thanks, guys. That's great. Very positive feedback. And let me cross back to your screen, Mark. And then, folks, we are done. So if you want to jump out of the session, please just feel free to do so. Thank you for tuning in. Click on the cross in the top right-hand corner. We're going to just play out for a couple of minutes with Mark explaining and maybe just giving us a quick demo of what flash fill is. There we go, Mark. We can see your screen. So over to you.
Thanks very much. So flash fill, the way it works is you're basically trying to build content in one cell based on content across the entire row that you're working in. So for example, if I wanted to extract a component of these cells, for example, I just wanted the person's initial and surname, so I wanted J Payne. Now we know normally if we select a cell and just drag it down, that it just replicates that if it's text. I can overwrite that though using flash fill, and what that does, it intelligently looks at the content in that row and basically interprets that and applies that across the other rows. And so here you can see it's taken the initial and of Justin and followed suit with all the others. Now this is a very powerful thing to do, and there's a nice little shortcut for it as well. If I just did Control and E, it's almost like magic, and it automatically pulls that through. I can have a lot of fun with this. So I could even say, for example, let's do another one here, that this is J, and I can even capitalize his name, J Payne, the dentist. So Control and E, and there we have it. we have a summary of our clients based on the example I gave Excel in the first row. And so you can very quickly then build up a unique cell based on content on the other cells. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what Flashfill is about. There are a few little things you need to be made aware of, but that is pretty much it. You can almost use that from the get-go. Very powerful tool. It does have its disadvantages though. There are other features like concatenate, which will automate that, so any changes here will automatically pull through. But if you're simply wanting to get some data into a cell based on current content, Flashfill is the way to go.
Well, that is mighty impressive, Mark. Thank you so much. Okay, Mark, I think we're done. So thank you very much. And thanks everyone for participating. We'll see you again online soon.
Cool. Thanks, Shane. Cheers. Bye.